And we are live. Wrapping up after a big weekend down at Cedar Lake, USA Nationals. We'll touch on that in just a minute. Of course, Herb Pierce was kind of the big news down there. And yes, I agree. Great racing last night for those of you that have subscriptions. North South 100 was pretty darn good, but the UMP Summer Nationals up over in Falls in Fairbury was a fantastic race, fantastic track. And the interesting about that track is you get the filming, but you're getting the filming from the backstretch. So you get to see them finish at the flag stand. Frankie Hackenass Jr. led some laps, Bishop led some laps, but ultimately it was the Squirrel that was victorious. They got into lap traffic, running that cushion as you usually do there in Fairbury. And my co-host Ryan Hill was talking with a late model driver up here in Wazota land. And this was early in the summer. We were talking about cushions and track prep. And he told Ryan, he said, those guys in Illinois and all those Summer Nationals guys are great on the cushion because they have a cushion. And most tracks here don't have a cushion to run on. And I thought that was an interesting statement. And it would be great for racing. It'd be great for fan counts if tracks can figure out how to get a cushion. Remember, the inside is the shortest way around, so the outside needs to be the fastest way around, and the easiest way to make it fast is with the cushion. So yeah, great racing in Florence, North-South 100. That was a Ralph Latham, I think, Memorial Latham. And that was a canceled event from earlier in the year. I think that was due to COVID, so they'll start the North-South 100 tonight, Thursday night. And like I said, the Hell Tour will continue, and so we'll see what happens there. All right, my takes, a little bit, some ideas on what happened down there at Cedar Lake. You've all seen what's happened between Herb and Pierce. You've heard the punishment, and I think the punishment is a little bit severe for Herb, $5,000 1 year, and then he has to apply for a reinstatement, so there's no guarantee he's going to get reinstated. Now, you could say dangerous situation. I agree. You can say, obviously he was, ramming equipment, very expensive equipment, not just his own, but also Pierce's. And then, of course, you had old man Bob Pierce running on the track, which was kind of insane. And according to Herb, saying, I'm going to, take you out and this and that, and possibly throwing punches through the window net or trying to get around it. The difference, though, in this racing compared to like major sports leagues, if you look at like a Barry Bettman with the NHL, or you look at Adam Silver at the NBA, or Goodell with the NFL, is the owners make up the committee that hire Roger Goodell, right? Or the owners make up the committee that hire Gary Bettman with the NHL. So when you hand down a suspension in a major sports league, as the commissioner, you're going to get a call. You're going to get that call from that owner. And odds are, when it's his player, especially a good player, you're going to get some pushback. Whereas, the racing bodies, World Racing Group isn't owned by any race team owners or any racers. Now, I know there was a time when World of Outlaw late models got going there in like 2004 when I think Bloomquist had some shares. I don't know. They used to be a publicly traded company on the stock market. They're not anymore. So I don't know if Bloomquist still has some shares, but let's just assume he doesn't, or even if he does, he doesn't have a dog in this fight. But I don't think he does. But, for the most part, other than Bloomquist, you don't have owners or drivers involved. So when you hand down a suspension, as World Racing Group did, you're not really going to get any pushback. I mean, yeah, obviously the driver's not happy, but there's a difference between a driver not being happy and your potential boss as a team owner being unhappy. There's a big difference, because at some point, as a commissioner, as the head of if you were the head of World Racing Group and it was the same situation, you'd have to answer that guy when it comes time to renew that contract. So racing is a little bit different, that, you don't have that same situation. And so the punishments can be a little more severe in these cases. Now, this is Herb's second incident. He had an incident in 2018 where I think it was with Hudson O'Neal, and I heard they were duking it out or something like that, or at least Herb was duking it out or trying to duke it out. So, but for the fans, it was great. Added a lot of excitement on lap 85, 15 laps to go. Pierce definitely was marching forward. Herb caused a lot of trouble on the weekend, arguably. Him and Gordy Gundaker got into it, and Gordy, I heard later that Gordy said that, he came in a little hot and had to hit the brakes, and he almost stopped, and that's when Herb got into him. Clearly, Ryan Gustin was not happy. His interview after his heat race when Herb got into him said when you race with squirrels, you're going to get your nuts cracked. So Herb was very aggressive on the weekend. We had mentioned that on some of our Facebook and YouTube comments. Burt Lehman and I, who's another commentator on the One to Go show with me. If you haven't been, you can subscribe. One to Go show YouTube, One to Go show, the One to Go show YouTube, the One to Go show Facebook, and the One to Go show in a podcast format. But he was, like I said, he was very aggressive on the weekend. And like I said, Pierce has a habit of getting into guys. There's no question about that. I mean, he took out Strickler at the Stream earlier this year. We saw that, put him in the wall. And this was early in the race, plenty of time to race on a big half mile. If you're fast, you're going to find your way to the front. T-Mac did. T-Mac started fairly deep and ended up winning the Stream. So, but it's, overall, I think it's good for racing. It's good for racing to have those two. They're right about 23 years old, both of them, I believe. So they will help carry the sport forward as guys like Bloomquist and Moyer are kind of nearing the end. I know Moyer said to me down at Cedar Lake that this was his last Nationals. He won't be coming back. This is it. Now, he's been a little bit Brett Favre-ish. He's retired a couple of times. I remember at the USA Nationals a couple of years ago, they gave Billy a special plaque because they thought that would be, before the race on Saturday night, they thought this would be his last one. Kind of honored him. He got the standing ovation. However, he's raced a handful of races since then. So with that, I wanted to comment on one last thing. I put some stuff up here on Racer Puka on Facebook and had a lot of comments. Not something I put up, but a racer commented that there were only 3 classes. Back in the 80s in Hibbing here, some of the earlier articles in the 80s, they used to actually give a fan count, couple thousand fans, usually on a regular night. And they had 3 classes. They had like a hobby stock, street stock type thing, either a 6-cylinder or super stock, and they had late models. And now Hibbing's got, I believe, 6 classes. What do they got? Hornets, streets, Midwest modifieds, super stocks, modifieds, and late models. Yeah, 6 classes. And, I commented on there. I agreed. There were people there saying it's time to cut classes, and I completely agree. I think 3 is plenty. It's 2020. Time has never been more valuable, and especially if you're trying to bring in the young fan. Young people are used to things moving all the time. They're always busy. They always have stimulation because as soon as there's dead time, they're on their phone. And they can get on a game or they can check social media. They can be on Snapchat. It's 2020. Major League Baseball figured this out over the last 20 years where, you watch a game from 20 years ago, they're constantly, they're kind of got the jersey and they had snuff in the mouth and they'd spit 2 or 3 times and they'd adjust their jock 5 or 6 times as they're up at the plate there, knock the mud off the cleats, and now the game has sped up a lot. Baseball's still too long, and that's why the ratings are no good in baseball. It's still too long. Young people are not consuming Major League Baseball. I don't consume Major League Baseball at all. I do like to watch the Twins. Actually, I have to have the Twins on in the background because that same announcer's been there for 25 years, so it's kind of soothing. Brings me back to my childhood, brings me back to the 87 championship, brings me back to the 91 championship. But actually watching the game, too slow and boring for me. I love going to Target Field. It's a great atmosphere there. That's kind of nice. Beautiful sunny days. But, the game is just too slow. And that's the same thing with racing is too slow. Racing is too long. Like I said, again, it's 2020. Time has never been more important. Now, you cut classes, and what's going to happen to those racers? They're either going to change classes, or odds are they're going to become a race fan. You want more fans anyway. When they're in the pits, you have to pay for them. They're going to earn something. Get them in the stands, They'll pay for the ticket. They'll buy a few beers, buy a couple hot dogs for the kids. You actually make money. That's where you want them anyway. This is a great chance to shuffle them out. This is an investment over the long term. If you can get these racers to get some of them out of the pits up into the grandstands and to get a shorter program to attract more fans back to your track and attract new fans who want a constantly moving show. I've talked on here before. The Enduros, my kids love them. Regular racing, they're real so-so. But the Enduros, there's always something going on. If there's not something going on in that corner, there's something going on that corner. If there's a fire over there, then they're blasting into each other over there. If there's a near rollover over here, then there's a near rollover over here. So there's constant action. The kids love it. So, they need to kind of look at that. Now, the question came up, which classes to eliminate? Well, to me, that's pretty easy. Now, everyone up here, as soon as they start talking classes, subconsciously their mind is thinking WISSOTA. You don't have to be WISSOTA. You can have late models. You can come up with rules for, just some loose rules for late models. So a guy can run a crate late, a B mate. He can put a aluminum motor in. I mean, WISSOTA is already handicapping, right? If you're got the best point percentage, you're starting 8th. So the racers around here should have no problem with handicapping. They love WISSOTA. They follow WISSOTA. They're loyal to WISSOTA. Handicapping is a part of the world. You can come up with some rules to handicap. Modifieds can be modifieds. You don't have to have 2 classes of modifieds. Come up with some rules where a B mod might be a little bit more competitive with an A mod, or you just handicap the thing like golf where the A mod starts further in the back. Again, the racer should have no problem with that. He's been handicapped. This rule's been in effect for, close to 20 years, right? I think in Hibbing they went to it in like 98. So it's been over 20 years, the handicapping. So I think they're one of the first tracks to do it, and then WISSOTA did it, all across the sanctioning body at some point, later. So that shouldn't be a problem at all. So you can have late models, you can have modifieds, and then you just got to choose between, supers are, supers and B late models. I don't know how much of a difference is there. And then you've got your streets in Hornets. So there's definitely a way to do it, but sometimes you got to think outside the box a little bit. And WISSOTA, I mean, as a promoter or an association, you got to look and say, how many cars are actually coming here because we're WISSOTA? How many cars are coming here because do we attract any cars because we're WISSOTA? If we got rid of the WISSOTA sanctioning, would we actually lose? If you lose 2 or 3 cars, is it really a big deal? Now, if they're the right 2 or 3 cars, I mean, there was a time when Buzzy Adams, when he was kind of going for national points, he would come to Grand Rapids. Buzzy was probably a car that people wanted to see. Plus, he'd bring probably a handful of people up with him. He's got pit guys and stuff. So you lose a guy like Buzzy Adams, yeah, that probably makes a difference. But you got to look at that on a case-by-case basis. How many guys you going to lose? And is it really going to make a difference for your track? So, all right, so that's about all I've got for you today. The One to Go show should be posted today or tomorrow from this week, so you can keep your eye peeled for that. I'll be getting to some tracks, possibly Grand Rapids tonight, probably Hibbing on Saturday. So if there's any news, I will jump back on here and let you know what's going on there. So everyone enjoy your day, and we'll catch you on the next vlog.